Hello, everybody. Welcome to stage 26. This is the second about the language, and it is about something called the gerundives. And really, actually, what I would rather this be titled is passive paraphrastics. Okay, so we'll talk about that in a second. Um, First of all, I just want to point out to us we've seen this before. If we focus on this, nobis correndum est, or ei re veniendum est. Okay, so when we compare these two things, hopefully we see some things in common. Okay, first of all, they're three words, right? Second, the first thing that I hope that you see is that they both have est. And then notice that the verb here, so we already know this verb, kuro, korura, means to run, but notice that we have this nd here. And revenio means to come back, to return. And notice that we have an nd there. Okay. Now, the way that I want you to remember the nd is that we're calling this one word reveniendum. This, everybody, is the gerundive reveniendum with that nd. Okay. This one word with the nd here is the gerundive. So not all three words, not correndum est, just correndum. And I want you to remember that that is the gerundive because in the word gerundive, we have that nd, okay? And that's not a coincidence. The verb or the word gerundive, or we know the word gerund in English. This is slightly different, but it comes from the verb gero gera, and it is actually the gerundive version of gero gera. Okay, so we have a couple of ingredients here for this phrase that I want us to learn here, and this phrase is called the passive paraphrastic. Okay, and so in fact, let me pull this up here, and I'm going to write this in capital letters. Okay, so the passive paraphrastic is made up of basically three things here. Okay, so we have the gerundive. We have a form of the verb to be, which is usually est. Sometimes it's sunt, but it's the usually est. The other thing that might not be quite as obvious is we have nobis here and ae here. Or if you look down here, this is a little bit more obvious. Mihi or tibi in exercise C. And then we have servis, kiwibus. Okay, here's aes there. These are all dative. All right, nobis is the dative of the word that means we or us. Ae is the dative of the pronoun he, she, or it. Mihi is the dative of the verb I or me. And tibi is the dative of the verb that means you singular. Okay, so every passive paraphrastic has three ingredients, if you want to look at it that way. They have a dative, and we're going to call this a dative of agent. I'm not too concerned that you know the identification of that it's a dative of agent, but I do want you to know that it's a dative. The second thing is that it has the gerundive. And the third thing is that it has this form of the verb to be. Okay? Now, let me get rid of all of that because I want to clear up the rest of this here. Now, in terms of translation, the biggest thing that I want you to know is must. Okay? So we're not saying he is coming back or he will come back or he might come back. The point of this passive paraphrastic construction, if I can get that back in there. The point of this passive paraphrastic construction is how in Latin you say must. Okay? Now, I'm going to give you the very literal meaning of this three-word phrase that really, to be honest, isn't going to make a lot of sense, which is why we have this translation. It means there is a running by us, or really, there must be a running by us. There must be a coming back, a returning by him. So you can see how we would make this a more literal translation. We must run. He must come back. Okay? So let's take a look at mihi fugiendum est. So how do you think that we would translate that? Now, the literal translation is there must be a fleeing by me. So how would we translate that? That's right. I must flee. Okay. What about exercise B here? Nobis ambulanum est. Now, the literal translation is there must be walking by us. Doesn't make any sense, does it? What would the regular translation of that be? That's right, we must walk. Okay, now let's try C here. Okay, now heat just means here. Maneo manera means to stay or to remain. So how would we translate tibi hic manendum est? That's right, you must stay here. You must remain here. Okay, for D, we have the word for slaves. We have diligenter, carefully, diligently, and then the word for to work. Okay, so how would we translate seris diligenter laborandum est? Right, the slaves must work diligently. Okay, so this is called, the whole construction is called the passive periphrastic, right? And really it's these two words here, it's the passive periphrastic. But the passive periphrastic is made up these three parts. We've got this dative of agent, we've got this gerundive word. So this reveniendum is the gerundive, correndum is the gerundive, and then we have the form of the verb to be. But all together, it is called a passive periphrastic. All right, everybody, that's it. Good luck.